On their end, in the immediate aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, you described the denial and just really the refusal to believe. And so whatever was festering within Saudi society, that ultimately did turn openly against the government in the form of all of these attacks, that was sort of left untended in the couple of years that passed after 9/11.
It did. It built up, and then there was a strategic, I guess you'd call it a strategic decision by Al-Qaeda to try and overthrow or attack the royal family and see if they could cause so much trouble inside the kingdom to cause the downfall of the royal family. So you had this building up and building up for a couple of years, and then during those year and a half, from 9/11, September 2001 to May 2003, Al-Qaeda was building cells within Saudi Arabia. They were building training camps out in the desert. They were planting down an infrastructure. They were getting ready to act. And the Saudi security people missed it. They didn't know it was taking place, including camps out in the desert. And it was only after what happened in May 2003 that they began to try to get a hold of the situation. But they let it fester and get worse for a year and a half.
Now, one of the things that has been looked at closely in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks are the funding flows that supported Al-Qaeda, bin Laden's efforts, and so on and so forth. And whereas I think you've documented that there's been no established link between Saudi government funds, or at least from the royal family, into these attacks, this general flow of money through institutions like Al-Haramain and for the outreach around the world, those flows did wind up bringing money to some of the radical jihadi elements in the world.
Yes, well, I didn't document that. I depend on the 9/11 Commission. The 9/11 Commission that was set up after 9/11 to try and explain how it happened and who was behind it, looked into the Saudi funding of Al-Qaeda and really of Wahhabi extremism around the world. And they came to the conclusion that there was no evidence that Saudi government officials had provided money knowingly or even unknowingly to Al-Qaeda. But they also came to the conclusion that there were a lot of private Saudis who were providing money, and that Saudi Arabia remained one of the most important banking centers, if you will, not officially, but underground, for Al-Qaeda, through private individuals who were giving money to, either through Al-Haramain or directly to Al-Qaeda. And they put a lot of pressure on the Saudi government to crack down on these individuals.
What was the critical moment in terms of the recognition on the Saudis' part that not just the bombs going off, obviously, but that these elements had really infiltrated many of the structures of education and religious outreach and fundraising campaigns that were supposed to be official, they were supposed to be okay, and yet perhaps all of these institutions, or many of them, had become deeply tainted?
One key, this is interesting. After the May 2003 attacks on the compounds in Riyadh, George Tenet, who was the CIA director at the time, went to Saudi Arabia and presented to the king what was going on in the kingdom, told him what U.S. intelligence had about Al-Qaeda's intentions for the kingdom, and told him basically, you have one big problem on your hands, and they have infiltrated this way and that way, and they're getting ready to wage a major guerrilla war against you inside the country. And that really convinced King Abdullah, actually it was Crown Prince still then, but he was running the country basically, that he had to take action. So it's an unusual circumstance that it took an American CIA director to really present the evidence across the board of what was going on inside the kingdom in order to get the Saudis to act.